Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. Before I get to our guest here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Imani Gross, on the podcast with us. She is 22, believe it or not, so that's even embarrassing me. I mean, I'm 24, everyone, and she's in better shape than me. She's an ASU Kinesiology major. She's an MPC figure competitor, but she's going into physique. She's also a member of Team Metroflex, but most importantly, she's our current guest. Imani, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. So why don't you give us a little bit of a backstory on what inspired you to make that change and adapt that healthy and fit lifestyle?
Absolutely. So, growing up, I was actually very overweight. I think going into my freshman year of high school, I was like 5'3" and like close to 200 pounds. So it was very difficult to kind of fit in, especially like you're amongst so many new kids and everybody's kind of trying to find their way and find who they are. I just found that I wanted to better myself to be able to fit in more. So I started going to the gym, and luckily for me, I come from a fitness background. My mom, she competed in figure and physique for the longest time, and her husband at the time, he was heavy into the fitness industry as well. So they kind of mentored me and motivated me to go to the gym with them and kind of taught me, the basic movements. We would train together as a family. And so finally, after I think it was my senior year that I had lost the weight that I had wanted to lose, people at the gym, they saw that I was there every day. I was doing my cardio, I was doing my workouts, I was eating tuna and brown rice in the lunchroom at school or whatever it was. They told me, they were like, hey, you have the awesome drive and the genetics to take this further, to compete with it. And so it was my senior year that I did my first bodybuilding competition. I competed in figure. And granted, I was not where I needed to be when I like leaned out and everything, but I stuck with it. I stuck with my whole plan and I got on stage. It was a very small show. It wasn't NPC. It was actually WBFF out here in Phoenix. And there was 3 other competitors in my class. And I took second. So I got a whopping like 50%, right? Which, hey, is better than nothing. But so yeah, and just having that confidence in knowing that I could place amongst other females who had been doing this for longer, it kind of gave me the drive to compete again. And so I actually ended up taking, I think, 2 years off in between my first and second show, so I could just kind of lean out more, improve my conditioning, because that's really where I struggled. And then my second show, I ended up getting first in a MPC show out in San Diego. With, I think there was maybe 8 or 9 girls in that class. So just progressively getting better and better. And now I've actually done a couple figure shows, a physique show. So it's been good to me so far.
So one of the questions that I always love to ask everyone, because it's one of those really tricky things where I always love to say, if you were to walk into a gym with 100 people in the gym, there are 100 different ways as to how they got into shape, whether it comes down to their nutrition, whether it comes down to their diet, how many reps they do, what exercise they do. There's so many little things that add up to the overall package that people end up seeing. Was that a difficulty for you starting out, finding out what works specifically best for your body? Because I always love to say, if you were to walk up to someone in the gym and say, hey, this body part of yours looks amazing, what did you train specifically for that to get to look so good? What worked best for them 99% of the time isn't going to work as good for you.
Absolutely. So it's really hard. It's kind of like finding your way. You have a lot of trial and error. I think the best thing that I could have done for myself and for my career as a competitor was to find a coach, because the individual only sees one side of things. It's the group, a collective, that is able to see where you don't push yourself hard enough, or see where you see things differently than how you yourself can see them. So I actually started working with a powerlifting coach here in the Phoenix area, and he does powerlifting and bodybuilding prep. But he was recommended to me by my mom, actually. She said, you know, Tim Sparks. I'm sure I don't know if you've heard his name before, but she said he's amazing trainer. He's going to push you harder than you can push yourself. So I started working with him, and absolutely, you know, he took my physique to the next level. Um, in probably, I want to say, like a year and a half of me training with him, and that's actually when I did my second show, and got the first place in figure out in San Diego. So it's a lot of working with different people. And now I've worked with Tim. I've worked with another coach at Coach Josh Barnett, who runs the Team Metroflex team. And then also just with social media, being able to contact and network with so many other fitness professionals, you kind of get invited to go train with them and see how their different training styles affect you. So it's been a very much a trial and error, but now I'm kind of starting to find my own. You know, it's taken me, I want to say, 4 years to finally understand what works for my body and what doesn't. And it's a lot to do with, there's so many factors that goes into it. It's not only your training, it's your nutrition, it's your genetics, it's all of it. So what works for one person is not always going to work for another, just based on those small factors.
Yeah, I mean, and you did bring it up. One of the things that I love to talk about as well is genetics, because most people don't realize that plays such a huge role in what people can achieve and how they can look. But I also, I mean, I love to ask, because it is different for everyone else when it comes to genetics. What was one body part when you got started that really, really took off that you don't need to train as much now? And what is one body part that really lags behind a little bit that you had to put into overdrive to get it to catch up to everything? Like, I'll give my examples first. So, I mean, mine is back. You know, I could train back once every 6 months and it would still look great. I mean, I have no idea how that's possible. But for me, I'm also 6'3". So, I mean, my legs are just, I have that pitcher's body where they're just small, and, you know, I got to train them twice a week, and it's a living hell for me, but, you know, you have to get it done. But what are those body parts for you when you got started?
So my back is absolutely untouchable. Like, especially in physique, it's given me a lot of success. Because when I hit that back double by, like, I'm sorry to all the other girls on the stage,
It's
but you're not
over. Yeah, it's over.
not gonna be. But yeah, that's like something I love to train back,
Mhm.
but I have to watch it because I don't want it to get like too. I don't.
Like, so big that it takes away everything else that you're doing,
Exactly.
basically. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. So, but for the life of me, I cannot get my calves to grow. Like that is, and I know every bodybuilder on the face of this planet has problems with their calves unless they're just like genetically gifted with those amazing masculine, like muscular calves. But mine, I could train them every day of the week, and they're not gonna change.
You got my answer 100%. I gotta say, one of the experiences that I had is I asked a guest that same question, and she said, "Oh, these," and then she plopped her calves up on the table, and she had calves bigger than my thighs, and I was like, "Okay, we're done here." I was like, "We're done here." It's like, we're done talking here. It's like, this is ridiculous. But yeah, calves, I hate that so much. I Like you said, I always say I could do 10,000 calf raises every single day. I could inject pure muscle into my calves, and they wouldn't grow. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's one of those things where, I mean, you have them or you don't have them. It's ridiculous. But I gotta say, I mean, yeah, you're one of the few women too that we've had on. I mean, just shoulder wise too. I mean, because that's probably my number one that I hear, especially from women, is the shoulders are really really hard to grow. But I mean, I think your mom kind of gave you some of the good genes as well, though, when it came down to coming down, because that's one thing that we get a lot is with, if we have people that have parents that are, you know, have lived a really healthy and fit lifestyle, that becomes, you know, a lot easier on them to get into it. But how long into your journey before, I mean, you decided to compete? And was that more of a process of, because we have so many people that come on and they say, you know, a lot of it is people like you were talking about coming up and saying like, wow, you look amazing, you should compete. But was it also a lot of internal things where you just said like, hey, that's really something I want to do?
It's funny you should ask. I had never thought of competing before people told me that I should.
Mhm.
And the one WBFF show that I did, I only did it because a friend of mine was putting on the show.
Mhm.
So he was like, "Look, you know, I'm really trying to get competitors to do the show. will you please do the show? And I was like, he kind of cornered me, but he had been a really huge influence in my health and fitness lifestyle. His name is Troy Alves. He basically has known me since I was like, I want to say 8 or 9 years old, just like sitting in the gym daycare reading books or whatever. He would always come say hi to me. So I call him my Uncle Troy. And there was like no way that I could say no to my Uncle Troy. So I was like, okay, fine. I'll do this show. I really don't want to do it. And I didn't think that I looked good enough to do it. And it was a really small show, but it paid off, in the long run. Because as soon as I got on stage and I discovered that I could do something like this, I could step out of my comfort zone and actually be successful in this, I was addicted.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things too. Like I say, find that one thing in your life that really just brings you so much joy and happiness, and just stick to it. I mean, and you found it at such an early age, so that's just, I mean, so amazing. But I also, I mean, it sort of brings up one of the stereotypes that I love to bust, because I always say, it's gotten better the last 5 years with Instagram, but there are still a significant amount of women that have that fear. If they touch one weight, they're just gonna hulk out. Put on 50 pounds of muscle, and as we were talking before we started doing this, I always say I'll sign that person. I'll give them my whole entire life savings, because they have found the secret that, me and so many other people have been looking for. But did you ever have that fear when you were getting started? And even if you didn't, I mean, I bet you've heard that a lot from women just being in the gym, that they have that fear of getting super bulky. What do you say to them when you hear that?
Absolutely. And I mean, I've struggled with that fear
Mhm,
too. When you first get started, you don't necessarily understand
mhm,
everything that goes into training. And you think that so many people see results in just training, especially men,
mhm.
especially men. It's
Guilty.
like, yeah, you guys can go lift weights and your muscles just respond so well. And you don't even have to like do any kind of caloric restriction or anything to lean out. Like you guys, you just have it. You have it made. But as a female, if you don't understand what you're doing, you might be under the impression that, yeah, you go to the gym and if you lift heavy weight, you're going to build muscle mass. And I even too now I struggle with, okay, well, this is the body that you have to live in all the time.
Mhm,
Are you sure you want to lift super heavy? Are
mhm,
you sure you want to eat this much or whatever it is? Because you have to live in it all the
mhm,
time. And I think that's an an idea that's been ingrained in our heads that we kind of have to overcome. But to females that want to start working out, it all comes down to eating
mhm,
at the end of the day. Are you supplying your muscles with the nutrients it needs to grow, or are you kind of restricting your calories so that you focus more on the area of like leaning out? So you can train, you can go in and you can lift heavy and eat a lot and get big, or you can go and train and do high repetitions and kind of restrict your diet a little bit more, and you see completely different results. So it's all goal specific.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I couldn't agree more. And I always love to tell the story. I mean, when I was in college, getting bigger and stronger, that's when I really took off. One of my really good friends, she came up to me one night and she said, like, you're going to the gym a lot, and I can see the results, and I want to go to the gym, but I'm just afraid I'm just gonna get too bulky. And I said to her, I said, look, the amount of weight that you carry in your purse when we go out to clubs or when we go out to eat weighs more than a lot of the dumbbells in the gym, and you are not gaining an ounce of muscle from lugging that thing around 24/7. And that finally convinced her. And she was like, yeah, I should really give it a shot. And I mean, and I tell her what I always tell everyone else, that whenever I'm walking down the street, or whenever I've had people email me and then say, like, what should I do to get started? I always say, what is the worst thing that's going to happen too? You're going to get healthier. And especially for women, and I mean, this is just a whole different thing, especially for women. For guys, I mean, it impacts a little bit, but for women, especially, just the confidence boost that it gives you, though, too. The confidence for women, I'd say, is the biggest benefit for them, not just health wise, but could you kind of explain how that kind of impacted you? Because I always tell people the confidence boost that you get is one of the few things that you can really take from the gym and impact everything in your life. Where just the confidence that you get from that really just helps your overall life. How did that confidence really impact your life that you gain from seeing those changes in your body?
So it's honestly made me kind of walk through life just knowing my self-worth is very high. Um you see that you can create a positive change in your physical appearance, and that alone just makes you feel good about yourself, and you know that you have the dedication that it takes to make these physical changes. And so it kind of allows you to enter any aspect of your life with that same dedication, that same motivation, that same drive, whether it be in the gym, whether it be at work or at school or whatever it is. Like, you understand that if you put forth an effort, a positive effort, you will get those positive results back. So I think that exercising for anybody, and even, it could be on a small scale or the scale of wanting to compete and gaining muscle mass, whatever it is, whatever your goal is. It's just a great way to build that confidence. And I mean, if you look at studies, exercise has been prescribed to combat depression, anxiety. It aids in sleep. Like, exercise is the all around better medication for, these daily struggles that we face.
I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. I mean, it is the cure for so many things that just go down the list. And that's another one of the huge reasons why people should do that. But I also love to ask, I mean, just to be able to get into shape, to get into a prep for 99% of the general public takes so much of a struggle. I mean, it just takes so much hard work and dedication. But going on to a prep, that is notching things up to an extreme level where it comes to, I mean, you got to hit all of your workouts. You got to eat the right amount of food at the right amount of times. Most people don't realize that the timed eating is a huge deal as well. And it's just so much things that people don't understand how hard it becomes. What was that experience like for you going on prep, and how has that evolved? Has prep became easier for you, or has it become harder as it's evolved over time?
Okay. So prep has definitely become harder.
Mhm.
I think if prep ever becomes easier for you, you're doing it wrong. But you just get to a point where you become stronger and you can take on that harder prep. You know that you can push your body harder than it's been pushed before, and you just kind of suck it up.
Mhm. Yeah.
But getting into that mode of sacrificing all of your other endeavors that you do in life, whether it's work or school or hanging out with friends, training and eating becomes your primary focus. So everything that you do revolves around getting up, doing your fasted cardio, planning your meals, training with intensity and purpose. It's like getting your mind into that kind of space takes a minute. It definitely, and you have to be ready internally for it. It's not something that you can externally be motivated for. If somebody is trying to push you to do a show, you're not going to really give it your all. It's got to be something that you want for sure, because at the end of the day, you're the one that's pushing yourself through those difficult meals, those difficult training sessions, all of it.
Yeah, and when it's one of those things, like I always like to say, it is so much more mental than it is physical that people just don't realize, because everyone can work out. Well, unless I mean everyone that's physically able to can work out, but I mean just the mental aspect of being able to wake up every morning and saying, like, you know what, I may feel like crap, but I am going to get that workout in. I mean, it just takes such strength and determination, and that's why I mean it's so impressive just seeing people and the changes that they make in their body. But one of the things that I was so surprised about, that I mean, if you were to have told me this before I started the podcast, I would have never guessed that for these competitors, a great majority of them, the hardest thing for them during their prep is posing. Posing for so many competitors, I mean, is harder than their nutrition. It's harder than their training. I would have never guessed it, but I've learned that from just doing this podcast for a great deal of time, that posing is the hardest thing. I mean, I always like to make the comparison. You can be a great driver. You can never be a perfect driver. You can be a great poser. You can never be a perfect poser. It's something that's always ever evolving. How has that been? What is your experience like with posing been for you? Because I know, I mean, you started in figure and you did a physique show. So that is, those poses are quite different. How was your start with posing starting out, and how did you make that adjustment going from figure to physique posing?
Oh man, I had no idea what I was getting myself into when it came to changing my poses from figure to physique. Because bless our hearts, figure girls, we have our quarter turns, our four little,
Mhm.
and you just you stand there and you make it look pretty, and you
Mhm.
can make it flow and things like that, but it doesn't really take that much effort,
Mhm.
I would say. Um, there's not a whole lot of room to add, that personality, that individual touch to it either. When it comes to posing for physique or men's bodybuilding or whatever it is, you have this crazy arsenal of poses that people don't even know these poses exist, and you can kind of make up poses and things like that, and you can do research on classic bodybuilders from the 80s or whatever, and they have coined poses as well that you can kind of practice, make your own or whatever it is. But posing itself is so difficult because you are trying to um, put forth these show off your muscle basically in a way that flows, in a way that is almost like rhythmic if you're doing it to music. And posing itself is cardio. It's hands down cardio. I had one posing coach who literally would turn on a spotlight on me. So you have this beating light, it's just making you hot as hell. And he's like, okay, we're going to do a pose down for 5 minutes. I don't know if you've posed down for 5 minutes, consistently contracting those muscles, those isometric contractions or whatever it is. It's like, it's a workout in itself. And I literally, you can get so lean just from posing. If you spend 20 minutes a day posing, or I'd say 20 minutes 3 times a week posing, it's a cardio session for sure. But it's nothing like figure posing.
Well, and I gotta say too, we've heard that so many times as well. Where I mean, just the posing alone is a workout in and of itself. Where I mean, and plus, people don't realize when you're doing those poses, that actually helps with like separating the muscles and making them a little bit fuller.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, most people don't realize that. So then, because a lot of times people are like, oh, why do all these bodybuilders just flex all the time? Like that's all that they're doing, and it's like, well, it actually helps them. It's kind of like a workout for them in and of itself, like you're saying. And yeah, the posing. I mean, we've had so many people with those horror stories. They decide, I'm gonna take a posing class 2 weeks before my first show, and it's like, oh well, good luck with that. Hopefully we'll see. So if anyone out there is thinking about competing, I have to say, get a posing coach, get it early on, maybe even before you start your prep, just so that you can get that foundation in. But now, out of your physique poses, what is your favorite pose and what is your least favorite pose?
I think, okay, my least favorite pose is hands down, just of the mandatory
Mhm.
poses, is the front double bi.
What?
Because I know. So I've struggled so hard to get those nice lines in my legs.
Oh yeah.
So to show off, I can pose my biceps all day long. I have very nice full biceps, but my legs have always been a very, very weak point for me. So I'd say that's definitely my least favorite pose, just because those little teeny tiny stems are like right in your eye. But my favorite pose is between the side tricep or the back double bi.
I was gonna say she had to have said back double by because yeah, I can vouch for that when she says it. Yeah, when she does it, yeah, everyone basically, all the competitors just basically start to cry, and then the judges, stand up and applaud, and they just say like, we're done here, everyone, just give her the damn trophy and let's get on with our lives. Yeah, so yeah, I mean, but yeah, and it's one of those things too that people just don't realize. It's like when you're taking photos, you got to hit the right angles, you got to hit the right lights. So that in and of itself is just a whole process that I mean, just really just adds on to the story that a lot of people don't hear about when they think about bodybuilding. But another thing that I love to talk about, because seeing myself, everyone out there, yeah, boohoo, I'm from the upper Midwest, where I'm the palest person you'll ever meet. I mean, the sun reflects off me. It's like those vampires in Twilight, where it just reflects, but it's not the cool, sexy way that it happens with them. For me, it's just people are just like, oh my god, my eyes, basically, whenever I. But yeah, so it's bad. But I've never been tan a day in my life. I either get that farmer's tan, where let's face it, that is not a real tan, or I get burned to an absolute crisp. What is that experience like for you putting on that tan? Because for so many of our guests, they talk about, like you see muscles that you never even knew that you had. Everything really seems to pop out. What is that feeling like for you when you get that tan on?
You know what? I've never really liked the tan so much. I'm kind of weird. I definitely do see a difference in, the muscles. Like just because it kind of the tan falls into certain lines on your body. It can kind of create that shading in those lines to maybe um, draw out the definition and the separation between muscles. But I personally, I would rather pose stark white. And I know, I absolutely 100% know that you completely get whitewashed out of those lights. So I understand the necessity of the tan, but it's not my favorite. Yeah.
And I gotta say, like, people don't realize, the whole process of getting the tan put on. That's one thing that I didn't even realize too. That when I first heard those stories, I was like, oh my god. I was like, okay, yeah, that's weird. Like how they make you all stand together, and I'm not gonna get into it again, but yeah, I understand, that whole process where that was really eye opening for me when I was like, okay, yeah, that's definitely different than what I thought it was gonna be like. But and the fact that people don't realize too, you are basically a statue when you put that on.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't move, you can't touch anything, you can't sit on anything, you can't really relieve bodily functions the right way, especially if you're
Yeah.
female. I mean, it's like I said, you basically have to become a statue. So that's another thing that when you're eventually you're just like, okay, how do these people how do these people deal with that? And it's just so amazing. But what really inspired and motivated you to go make the change from figure to physique? Was it just the fact that you were just getting too big for figure, you thought, or was physique something that you always wanted to do?
No, physique is something I've always wanted to do, and people have told me left and right that I should stay in figure, that, my body was perfect for figure. And they might have been right, because the first going from figure to physique, I did I took first place in overall in my last two figure shows, and then I moved up to physique and I did third place out of four girls. So I didn't do very well. Um, and so they could have been absolutely right. I was definitely outsized by the girls in my class. They were much bigger than I was. I hit the stage at maybe like 119, whereas the other girls were 130, 135. Like they just had um, much more solid muscle. And they had time to allow that muscle to mature as well. They had been in women's physique or women's bodybuilding even much longer than I had. But you get bored with figure. I got bored with figure, and it's like as an athlete, you want to train harder, you want to push yourself harder, and so you need that room for growth. If I were to stay in figure, people say, oh, your body's perfect for figure. It's like, well, I'm at a point where I just need to maintain, maybe improve a little bit here and there, depending on the feedback I get from judges. But I really wanted to make a drastic difference in my training and my muscle mass and everything. So I think moving to physique, I did it a little bit too early. I should have taken more time to build on that quality muscle, but that was always something I wanted to do. And in my heart, I will continue on that path.
Yeah, well, I gotta say, like, before I had you on, I always go through the person's Instagram and just look at a few photos, just sort of get a little background on everyone. And I saw that one where you did that flashback where you were doing that front double, and I was like, okay, yeah, she could do physique. I was like, because I saw your thing like figure physique, I was like, okay, yeah, that's physique. Those are physique arms. It's like, let's be honest, so I was like, yeah, yeah, she could definitely do that. And then that just makes me even more depressed, just realizing that you're 2 years younger than me and that you are in better shape than me. So I'm just like, oh my god. The worst though I had on an 18-year-old power lifter who could bench. I think it was like 275. I think she was her bench, and she's
Wow.
like the strongest one in the U.S. And I was like, okay, I don't even want to have you on. It's like what? It's like come on.
Yeah,
It's
that
like
would make me cry.
it's like get out of here. It's like, and she was 5'1" and I'm 6'3", so she was a foot and 2 inches shorter than me. And I was like, okay, that's not even fair. I was like, you could give me a piggyback ride and my legs would be touching the ground basically when we were. It's like it's not even. I just yeah, that's just one of those things where I just didn't yeah. I don't want to talk about that anymore. It just brings back painful memories. But yeah, it was. But yeah, I mean, but she was
But
absolutely
for
a
her,
great guest.
that's amazing.
Oh
That's
yeah.
impressive.
It was super impressive. And yeah, so yeah, but she was absolutely a great guest. But I also love to ask, I mean, all of the guests that I have on, whether they be my bands, my health and fitness people, or professors that I have on for my bands, I always love to ask, what is that feeling like performing live, going on stage and performing in front of, just thousands upon thousands of people? What is that like? But that also applies to my bodybuilders as well. What is that feeling like for you when you get to walk on stage, show off all of that hard work that you've worked months upon months for, and just how hard prep can be? What is that feeling like to finally be able to go on and show that off?
It's crazy. You have such mixed feelings about it because one, it's nerve wracking. I mean, you're standing behind stage with all the people that you're going to go up against. You're like doubting yourself, like, oh, am I good enough? Am I big enough? Am I lean enough? Did I time my carb load right for the day? Am I whatever it is, am I holding water? So it's kind of nerve wracking in that sense. And you get on stage and you're up there for maybe 30 seconds to a minute. And it's not enough. Honestly, I love being on stage just because of that adrenaline rush that you get. But for as much time and as much effort that you put in on your months of prep, it's really not enough. So I feel that I love being on stage for those 30 seconds or whatever. It's an addictive feeling, but once you get off stage, you're kind of like left feeling a little bit empty.
Mhm. Well, yeah, and because I always tell my bands too, it's like you guys get to go on stage for like an hour and a half to 2 hours, but I mean, you guys get to go on stage for like 30 seconds to a minute, like you said. So, I mean, that's just more power to you because for me, I mean, if I put in all that training for like those, some people do, even preps up to like 20 weeks we've heard, but if I did that, for 30 seconds, I mean, it's like, oh, yeah, that's something that I mean, it just more even adds more to the inspiration of I mean why people do it and why they love it, and it really just is basically just showcasing all of that hard work that you've put into, and I mean it's just so inspiring, especially for people like me who've never competed. But now we get to one of my fun questions: what is your go-to post-show meal?
Oh, my go-to post-show meal. Okay, if I am that's so tough. I have a terrible sweet tooth, so it's always going to be something like revolving around sweets. This last show, I binged on donuts. I had like 7 donuts, which is terrible. But if I'm trying to be like kind of decent,
Powdered mini donuts that I had 2 nights ago.
oh, I love
Yep.
it.
Hmm. Yep.
Donuts are my guilty pleasure. Like I know how terrible they are for me, but I love them.
Hmm.
But I donuts and like a good burger. Oh my goodness. Like with some bacon and some barbecue sauce, like that
Yep.
is my heart.
I always said if I ever competed, I would do like a Five Guys where I would just go there afterwards and just absolutely pig out. But I mean, I put on, as people can already tell, I put on my 10 to 15 pounds of winter weight that I put on every year. Because let's face it, when it's like negative 10 degrees where it's like now, you do not want to be lean because you will be.
Yeah, feel free.
Yeah, it's like being a skeleton when people, they talk about the skeleton face that you get or the skeleton body, basically. Yeah, if you go out in the free, yeah, you're gonna freeze even quicker. So you got to have a little bit of fat in you just so that you're able to deal with it. So I mean, that's why I love doing it. But that also leads me into probably the most important question that I ask everyone on the show. And again, this is one thing that so many people don't understand because I mean, a lot of people they look at these photos and they just assume that the competitors are able to look like that 365 days out of the year. They don't realize that is an unsustainable look. Like, I'll give an example. I was at a New Year's Eve party and one of my friends came up to me and he said, Ryan, I love watching your podcast. It's really awesome. But I was surprised that, all these lifters, that they don't look that way 365 days of the year. Because, like, you have some of these people on and they look nothing like they looked when they were on stage. And I was like, well, yeah, that's because they go. Then I have to explain to them what I was like. Well, first of all, if you watch one of the podcasts, we talk about it. But so you clearly aren't watching it. But I always love to say, I mean, it's not a sustainable look. It's not healthy. You've manipulated your body through all of the dieting and through all of the working out into a look that is not sustainable. A lot of people don't realize when you step on stage, you are at your unhealthiest of your entire prep just because of that manipulation. Was that ever a struggle for you starting out, just realizing that, no matter how much of the hard work that I put into this prep, I am going to have to put on weight? Because we've had so many guests come on and talk about, like how depressed or anxious it makes them just realizing that, like, hey, I worked my butt off, but this is not a sustainable look. How have you dealt with that too? Because I know so many people have a really hard time dealing with that.
You know what? That's something I still deal with to this day after doing as many shows that I've done, and it's something that you kind of never get used to, but you have to understand the necessity of it for the sake of health, especially being a female athlete, because females, we are not built to sustain a look. We're not even built to attain a look that is 5% body fat or whatever. And if you and man, I hate competing as a female for this reason. But you get down to such a uh, lean look, and you begin to compromise your reproductive system,
Yep.
things like that. Um, I myself, as well as a lot of other female competitors that I know, have had issues in which we stop a period, and that doesn't come back for months after after the show. So you actually have to gain a lot of body fat or a decent amount of body fat in order to get back to that healthy state. And so it's like if competing is your entire life and you want to compromise your health that way, by all means do it. But I don't think that you should risk those feminine aspects in order to compete. And I mean, it goes with men as well, men and women. You know, we need that off season. We need that time to quote unquote bulk if you're trying to gain muscle mass, if you're trying to improve performance. And you can ask any competitor, you know, the weeks coming up to their show, their performance level goes way down just because they don't have those extra nutrient stores to pull from. They're so depleted, they're tired all the time, and getting to the gym becomes more of a just a necessity, and you might not get as much out of your workouts as you do at the beginning of your prep or in an off season mode. So um, anybody who wants to stay lean year round, you know, that's their thing. They want that aesthetic look year round, but it's really not conducive to performance, and it's not conducive to improvement upon further shows.
Well, absolutely, and I couldn't agree with you more on that. I mean, we've heard so many stories too. I mean, we had one competitor come on who I'll tell you the name of when we're done recording, but she was at 2% body fat when she competed, and that's just like, and she weighed like, I think it was like 180 pounds, so she had 3 pounds of fat in her entire body. So it's like, I was talking to her, I was like, okay, what, like how, first of all, do you get down to that low of a body fat percentage? But yeah, it was just, and people just don't realize that that is not sustainable, because then we have so many people where, especially the guys, where they come on, they talk about like, you know, all their friends are like, wow, I want to look like you. And then it's like, well, you don't realize what that takes to look like that. And I mean, it's like, and even the guy bodybuilders too, they have to put on weight. But I mean, the thing that's, I think struggles a lot with women is because for guys, it's so much more acceptable to just be like, oh, I'm putting on that, you know, that 20 to 30 pounds, you know, like bulking weight. So yeah, it's one of the things that I love to ask, especially the female guests. But I also love to say it's also like starting a business. You got to spend money to make money. You got to put on weight if you want to put on muscle. So it's just, you know, it's one of those things. And plus, let's be honest, you have to like to eat. So I mean, I mean, that's the benefit of it too. I mean, you finally get to eat, you know, a little bit. You don't have to do so much cardio. I mean, so that if I did that, I mean, that would definitely be my one thing that I would just love about it and look forward to it intensely. But now, two of my favorite questions that I love to ask all of our guests that we have come on, health and fitness wise. So for my first one, I mean, one of the things, there's so many beneficial things that really happened to me when I started putting on weight and started putting on muscle in college. But one of the negative things for me is that you're going to get asked to move a lot of people's furniture. You're going to get asked to open a lot of pickle jars. I mean, I'm still at home with my parents for the next couple of months before I move out, but every time they come home with groceries, I basically have to lift the car into the driveway and bring in all the groceries. Has that been a similar experience with you, or just because people take a look at you, or people know that you compete, that they just assume that you can do favors like that for them?
Yes, absolutely. They assume that you can do favors like that, and then they assume that you're going to train them too. They're like, they're like, oh, will you train me? Especially family members. They think this comes so easy. It is so free because you're family, you know, that they get the use out of it. But yeah, me and my mom too, because we live together. We get asked to do stuff like that all the time, to move, and she has a big lifted truck, so it's like doubly difficult because everybody wants to use her truck, and then
Yep.
everybody wants us to come lift stuff for them.
I, I gotta say, yeah. For me, luckily, I don't have a truck, but for me, it's a double edged sword, because being 6'3", if I had no muscle at all, people would just look at me and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, tall guy, come and help us out." Like, the tall guy can definitely lift it. So,
Yeah,
yeah, it got to a point where I was like, every other week last summer, a friend would text me and be like, "Oh hey Ryan, you want to come over and help me move?" And I was like, "Well, I don't want to, but I'll do it." But I always told him, I always said, "Let me get my workout in first, though, because I do not want to get tired from lifting your stuff that I won't be able to get my workout in."
absolutely. Yeah.
So that is definitely the key. But now I got to ask, out of you and your mom, have you been able to outlift her now, or is she still the queen when it comes to lifting?
My mom's a wimp.
Oh,
She's an absolute wimp, and
shots
she'll tell
fired.
you too. I take her to the gym all the time. I'm like, Mom, come work out with
Mhm.
me. She's like, I don't know if I want to go that hard today.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean and that's awesome. But I mean, it's awesome that you also have like a family bonding time with it too. Because I've had health specialists come on and talk about, like one of the keys to the obesity crisis is, like having the parents influence and have that healthy lifestyle on the kids. I mean, not forcing them to do it, but just, so the kids can see what that looks like really helps out. So I mean, that's great that you and your mom can, find time to go and work out, because believe me, there are so many people that definitely wish that that would happen. But now, my favorite question to ask out of this entire podcast, and again, it's a multi-million dollar idea for anyone out there who's thinking about it, but when it comes to clothes for fit women, I always love to say your clothing options can be limited. I mean, like if you have big, broad shoulders, dresses aren't your best friend. Jeans are another thing that we hear of all the time that so many people struggle with. But what are some ways that you kind of compensate for the fact that your clothing options can be limited?
I wear workout pants and yoga pants almost everywhere. And my favorite thing, because in bulking season, in my off season, all of my weight pretty much goes to my hips. Like I
Mhm.
have that universal girl problem. So my legs get pretty big. So I do the yoga pants, I do the stretchy jeans. I get these like $15 jeans off of like Fashion Nova or whatever. They're high waisted, so they cover if you got a little belly or whatever, and they're like stretchy, so they're easy to get on. And then I'm a fan of like crop tops and tank tops.
Yep.
Because I have like and they have to be stretchy, they have to be loose because I have a very big back, and I cannot wear sports bras whatsoever. You will never see me in a sports bra unless I'm prepping and I've lost a ton of weight.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's got to be all like stretchy stuff all around.
And I always say, like I have a funny story with that where I came back after my freshman year of college and I'd put on, about 15 pounds of muscle, and I went to a friend's wedding and I went to go bend over to pick something up and I heard a zzzz, and I was like, oh crap. But luckily I lucked out big time. It wasn't the suit, it was the shirt inside the suit. So I lucked out.
Oh my
I
god.
lucked out so much because I was gonna say if it was the suit, I would have been like, oh yeah, sorry, I can't. But yeah, so I lucked out in super bad, but that's when I realized, hey, I definitely need to upgrade my wardrobe. But now, I mean, you're also in Arizona, and I always, I love to ask the people there in the cold climates like me how you're able to, work out when it gets super cold. But in Arizona, I mean, I've had friends go up there and tell me, especially during the summers where it can be like 110 degrees, it can be just super, super hot. What are some ways that you find as motivation to still want to be able to even like go out to your truck to go to the gym to work out when it gets to be that hot? Because for me, I mean, I would be inside 24/7 if it was that hot.
Yeah, absolutely. The sun and the heat drains you
Mhm.
out here, and it's kind of ridiculous. But I would work out early in the morning, late at night, and kind of, especially if you're trying to lose weight or lose fat, you can use the heat to your advantage for sure. I wouldn't recommend working out outside, um, but if most gyms they don't have very good AC out here when it comes to the summer. So you can definitely go in there. I know it's rough.
Yeah.
It's rough. You
Oof.
could definitely go in there and expect to sweat,
Yeah.
expect to sweat it out. So it's funny. You'll see a complete difference in athletes in fitness. Well, actually, everybody when it comes to water retention in the winter and water retention in the summer. In the summer, everyone's dehydrated and looking like hard, like lean, as fuck. But excuse my
No
language.
problem at all. Hey, it got the point. It got the point across. And I mean, yeah, I love to make that because in Minnesota, I mean, it can get to like the 80s or the 90s, but it rarely, if ever, reaches 100. I think it's probably reached it like once or twice the last 5 years. So yeah, I mean that. I mean, I'm with my skin tone too. I mean, you can't really go outside that much anyway. Even if I mean, I could use 10,000 block and it would still happen. So that's why I mean, my favorite days of the summer are the super cloudy days where it's still like a cool like 70 degrees where you go outside and you can do whatever you want. But that's why like for my cardio, I go on bike rides, but I wait until like 9 o'clock at night during the summer, and I go on like an hour and a half, late night bike ride. But yeah, so it's all about adapting, and plus, when I'll give my advice for the people that live in this winter, where it's like -10 degrees outside, it's like, well, what else are you going to do? If it's that cold, you're not going to go outside. You're not going to go sledding. You're not going to go play hockey. You're not going to do anything else. I am lucky where I have a gym at my house, so I work out 75% of the time there. But
Uh,
we'll get into that later because I have a funny story with that too. But that's for a tad bit later in the questionnaire. But yeah, I mean, yeah. So it's all about adapting to your environment. But now I got to ask, you're a kinesiology major. Could you explain to everyone what kinesiology is? When people hear that, I mean, they just assume like, oh, that's just something really, really smart. But most people don't know exactly what that is.
Absolutely. So kinesiology, the base of the word is like the study of movement,
Hmm.
basically. So a lot of people would say that it's akin to like an exercise science major. It's a little bit different from that. It's a little bit more science based. It's a little bit more like research based. It has a lot to do with the processes that occur within us in regards to like exercise. So, exercise endocrinology, how our body metabolizes certain fuels in response to exercise. It even goes into biomechanics and motor control, things like that. You can study different disciplines under the kinesiology branch. I myself study exercise physiology, which is definitely a lot more to do with those biological processes that happen within us in regards to exercise.
That's amazing. I mean, it's just so cool what you can learn from the body and how you learn that just the body's just basically a big machine that you put stuff in, stuff comes out, and you try to get the best results out of it basically when it comes to movement. But how has it been being a competitor and also being in college? Because I mean, for so many people, college, it's drinking and partying a lot, and especially going to Arizona State. It's like, are you kidding me? Arizona State is like known nationally as like probably for anyone out there who's international, Arizona State is basically known as the party school of the entire country. And it's been like that for like the last 30 years. Like everyone always says, if you want to go for a wild party, you go to Arizona State. So how have you been able to, sort of avoid that when it's such a huge part of the culture on campus? And for everyone out there too, it's the biggest campus in the country. Like it has so many students. But how have you been able to avoid that and still be able to maintain that prep life while you're going to college at Arizona State?
So this is why I still live at home. I
Mhm.
live about 40 minutes from campus.
Yep.
So if I get invited to parties, anything like that, I'm like, well, do I really want to Uber 40 minutes?
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it. It's a deterrent altogether. But I am lucky enough to go to. There's a couple different campuses that the ASU has over the Phoenix area.
Mhm.
I go to the downtown campus, which is much more education focused. The Tempe campus is like that party
Yeah.
hard,
Mhm.
campus. But yeah, so I go to the downtown campus. I even go to the West campus on occasion, but they're much smaller campuses too. And it's cool because everybody at the downtown campus, for the most part, is in their health and science college.
Mhm.
So they're all in similar fields, whether it's all revolving around biology, basically, whether it be kinesiology or nursing, whatever it may be. They're all they understand what you're going through. And so they're more prone to, well, I guess I should say they know what is terrible for the human body. And I think they're more prone to living a healthier lifestyle there.
Yeah, well, and that's such a great influence to have. But how has being a kinesiology major? How has that helped you overall with your health and fitness? Has it really just reinforced things and really helped you get a clear and positive mindset of what works best for you?
Yes, absolutely. Like we were talking about before, it kind of took me a while to gain ground and understanding what worked for my body and what didn't. And I think that everything that I've learned thus far in my degree has really helped me gain that ground. Um, but it's been a little bit difficult for me because, like we talked about before, bodybuilding is not a healthy sport, and that everything that I learn in school reinforces that. So I kind of have to go against sometimes what I learn and what I know is right in order to compete. But at the same time, it's helped me really improve my performance, improve my physique, understanding what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, absolutely. And lastly, before we go into the questionnaire, so how did your friends react? Because I know your mom would probably be super supportive because you had a family background in bodybuilding. But how did your friends react when they started seeing these changes? And then when you decided to go into bodybuilding, what was their reactions?
So when I first started competing, none of my friends thought I was gonna be any good at it. No one came to my first show. I was so mad. um, but after they saw that I was successful in it, they understood it and they stopped making fun of me for eating tuna in the lunchroom or whatever it was, and not wanting to go out and stuff like that. But when I moved to women's physique, they definitely showed a kind of reluctance. um, they told me, don't get too big. You don't want to start to look like a man. All of that, everything in the book, and they were like, this topic comes up all the time, oh, don't take steroids. I heard women bodybuilders, like, they have to take steroids, and so they were definitely unsupportive in that sense.
I mean, it's so important though to have that support from the friends, because it really does help you. Because like for me, I got started basically on myself, and if I were to have just one person there as a support system, I mean, it would have helped so much. So yeah, I mean, I can't stress that enough how important that is. But now we go to our audience favorite and my personal favorite part of the podcast, a little questionnaire where we're going to ask our guests here about a dozen or so health and fitness related questions, sort of like a getting to know you. But we'll see how our answers stack up to all the other health and fitness guests that we've had on our show. So for our first question, what is your go-to workout song at the moment?
Oh, at the moment, I love Post Malone. So any Post Malone song, and it's kind of slow, but he has some bangers. He has
Mhm.
some bangers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Post Malone. Yeah, I can totally understand that. For me, I'm more of an old school where I got to get, my 80s music. I got to get my, cheesy 80s where I'll have like the Rocky 4 soundtrack, the cheesiest soundtrack of all time. But like I was telling you before, 75% of my workouts come at home because luckily I have a gym at home. But when I do go to a regular gym, I'm one of those people where I got to wait for the beat to drop. So if I'm doing like a lat pull down, you might see me like this for like 30 seconds. I've had people come up to me and say like, "Hey, are you all right? Like, did you like pull out your back or something like that?" And I just say to them, I said, "Nope. I'm just waiting for the beat to drop." So I am known throughout my gym as the guy who waits for their beat to drop. So,
I'm the same way.
yep.
So
Okay, we got another person here. So thankfully we have that. But now, out of all the celebrities on the planet, if you could work out with any celebrity, who would it be?
oh my goodness. Like Instagram celebrity,
Doesn't
not
matter.
Steffi Cohen.
Steffi Cohen.
She
Ooh.
is my biggest inspiration right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, Steffi Cohen. Yeah, that's definitely a good one. I mean, I highly recommend everyone, if you haven't gone and checked her out, go and check her out. But now, out of all the celebrities on the planet, if you could train any celebrity, who would it be?
Oh, that is a tough one. Um, I don't know. I guess maybe shoot, I've never thought about this.
I don't say Diggy on the spot for nothing.
Yeah. Let's see. I would probably want to train Leonardo DiCaprio. I feel like he's such a good-looking man,
But he has a
but if I
dad
could
bod.
put
Yeah.
some quality muscle on
Yeah.
him, he'd be
The
perfect.
one thing, yeah, Leo has a dad bod, so I always say if he were to be able to, work out, yeah, he would be
Yeah,
that would be great. But then it got to the point where I'd be like, would he be too good looking then? That's the problem though.
that's a problem.
That's
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know if people would be able to handle that. So yeah, I don't know. I think maybe for the sake of the world and everyone on the planet, if he just stayed, a little pudgy, that would be good. Because if he became like he'd become like the standard of beauty then if he put on some muscle. So yeah, that's the one thing. But so now, what is one item that you always need to have in your fridge?
Egg whites,
Yep.
always.
That is tied with chicken for our most popular answer. We hear that all the time, but I do have to say the most surprising answer that I've gotten out of there is mustard, because I never realized, but for a lot of bodybuilders, it has 0 calories, 0 fat. You got to have your mustard, but I always tell them, if you put your mustard on chicken just to make it taste better, you might want to reevaluate your life. But
Yes.
yeah, that's definitely one of our more famous answers. But now, out of all the people who follow you on Instagram, what would be the most surprising thing about you that they'd probably find out if they met you in person?
Um, I guess that I just don't look like, my Instagram pictures, when I'm in my off season. I
Mhm.
hope that people recognize me
Yeah.
still.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't keep that leanness all year round.
Well, and that's definitely a thing. I mean, our most popular answer is that a lot of these people don't realize that how short some of these people that I have on ours, because they realize, like, sometimes people are like, "Oh, I thought that they were like 5'8", 5'9", or whatever," and then we've had guests who are like, "Oh no, I'm 5 feet tall," and it was like, "Oh well, yeah, that's awesome, dude." But I have to ask on that. I mean, like you said, you're 5'3". I have never had this feeling, and I've always wondered what that's like. Where if you walk into the gym, I mean, and you're 5'3", most people don't expect that you probably wouldn't be that strong, especially like if you're in your off-season look where they can't see, the muscles or the huge back, especially if you're covered up. What is that feeling like for you when you finally go out there and lift those heavy weights and just seeing everyone's jaw drop? Is that just such a great feeling for you?
Such a great
Mm-hmm.
feeling. Absolutely. I I get told all the time that I outlift most
Mm-hmm.
guys at the gym.
Yep.
So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I couldn't. Yeah. If I got outlifted, yeah, by a girl who was a foot shorter than me, yeah, I would definitely reevaluate things. And I'd be like, life has no more me. I was like, life doesn't make any sense to me anymore. So we got it. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that's just so awesome because that's the one thing. If I was shorter, that I think would be really really cool. But also, being tall, everyone expects you to be a little bit stronger though too. So that's just a whole nother topic that I'll get into with a different podcast. I mean, we've had a few women that were 6 feet tall, and I was like, yeah, you get the height problems, you get the tall struggle of going to the gym. But yeah, so now I gotta ask, if you could change the sport of bodybuilding in any way, if you had the all knowing power to do so, what is one way that you would change it?
Oh, I think I would make it healthier.
Mhm.
You know, I would, and that's almost impossible to do, but like dropping water and those depletion diets and stuff like that, I would definitely change that.
Yeah, that's definitely one thing that I think a lot of people would definitely want to change. But now we go to our fun version of the questionnaire. So now, what was the last TV show that you binge watched?
The Ted Bundy tales on Netflix.
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
Yep.
So infatuated with like crime stuff and killer stuff.
Yeah. Well, have you seen the new trailer for the new Bundy movie with Zac Efron playing the role?
Yes, it looks so good.
Here's the thing, though. Ted Bundy was not absolutely ripped and shredded, though. So that's like, I was like, Zach, you gotta lose. Ted Bundy was a skinny. I mean, he was a normal looking guy. He was like a
Yeah.
normal shape. It's like, Zach, you can't go on there just all ripped and shredded because it's like he was. That's the one thing that I had against him. I was like, if you're gonna play that role, that would be like if someone was supposed to play someone who was obese and they showed up like super lean and shredded. It's like, no,
Yeah.
that's not. So yeah.
I want to sacrifice the game.
Yeah, I know that's true, but yeah, so yeah, I liked it and I will enjoy it. But You was actually the last TV show that I binge watched. I watched it 2 days ago. That was
Yeah,
good. That was a
that
good
was
one. Yeah, absolutely. But now, what is your favorite TV show of all time?
favorite TV show of all time, Ghost Adventures.
Ghost
Anybody on my
Adventures.
Instagram knows.
Okay, so are you a believer in ghosts, or you just like it for the comedy, basically?
I am a believer in ghosts.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'm super superstitious.
I just love those moments where like something falls and they're like, "Oh my god, did you hear that?" Or there were times where they've been proven where like a guy makes a sound and then they're like, "Oh my god, did you hear that? That's a ghost." And then the guy's like, "No, that was just me like cracking." But I always said like that and like those finding Bigfoot things. I always would love if they actually ran into an actual ghost or they ran into like an actual Bigfoot when they were filming, just to see because that those guys are faking it though for those ghost shows. Like they're trying to get an audience, but if they actually ran into like an actual ghost, how they would react, I think that would be
Yeah,
so hilarious.
that would be super
Yeah,
hilarious.
100%. But now everyone has one. What is your guilty pleasure movie?
Guilty pleasure movie. I don't think maybe like Alien, the old school
Yeah,
Alien. Yeah.
that is a great one. Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge horror guy myself, so Halloween, is my favorite horror movie. But yeah, Alien, yeah, that is a great one for me. All my guy friends, close your ears. Princess Bride is my guilty pleasure movie. I've watched that movie so many times that I know a lot of the lines, and whenever it comes on, I stop what I'm doing. So I'll give an example. I was writing my thesis paper in college, and the movie came on, and I stopped what I was doing for 2 hours to watch it. And if that isn't dedication, I mean, I don't know what is. But yeah, Princess Bride, all my guy friends, I'll never admit it in person, but if you watch the podcast, I admit it on here. But now, what is your favorite fashion trend of all time and least favorite fashion trend of all time?
Oh, favorite fashion trend. Probably bodysuits
Yep.
for females, like they clip in the in between your legs because they as a female you want all your curves to be like if you have curves you want them to be hugged. So bodysuits are amazing. Least favorite fashion trend, the Birkenstocks. I do not want to see your toes. But like no, and especially not in a flip flop that looks like that.
Especially, I mean, my grandpa is like 88 years old, and he sometimes wears those, and you can see his old toe. And I was like, Grandpa, we know you love it. So now we finally got him to like wear socks over, and then he still wears the Birkenstocks with socks on. But now for the last question, the questionnaire before we wrap things up. So if you could go back in time and talk to the 18-year-old version of yourself, what would be the best piece of advice you would give her?
Best piece of advice. Just to stick to what I was doing, stay away from boys. Boys are trouble for me. And find a coach.
That's why I got into girls, because boys are trouble. Oh no, I always love to say that because we have answers like that too. It's like stay away from boys, and I was like, yep, that's why I'm into girls. So
Yeah,
so so Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's another thing too. I mean, I could always tell myself. I mean, I was a huge people pleaser back then. Just you're not gonna be able to please everyone. Not everyone's gonna dig your vibe. So just you don't have to go the extra mile for people that you know aren't gonna really care. So that's one thing I would tell myself. But now we're done with the questionnaire. So I like to ask these two final questions before we wrap things up. So when are you planning on competing next? I mean, do you have a date in mind, or are you just currently in the bulking phase? What is your plan like?
So there's actually a show I'm thinking about doing, and I'm still in the contemplation phase of this, but it's this May 25th. And it's local show, it's in Phoenix, but a national qualifier. If I don't do that one, I will definitely do one this summer.
Mhm.
It just depends. It's hard to compete and focus on school at the
Yep.
same time. So when I do compete, I like to plan it so that, my prep or the hardest part of my prep is outside of
Mhm.
school semesters.
Yeah, I mean, people just don't realize how being a student, is a full-time job in and of itself. So everyone out there, I mean, yeah, 100%. But now lastly, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to?
Ooh, shout out my mom
Mhm.
because she's awesome. She'll probably won't see this unless I show it to her, but
Well,
she's not on
she
social media or
she won't
anything.
like the shots fired that you gave her though by saying that she's a wimp basically.
Well, she knows I
Yeah,
call her
yeah,
all
yeah, yeah.
the
So
time.
yeah, so absolutely, and again, you guys, we cannot thank our guests enough for coming on. I mean, thank you so much also for coming on. You were such a great guest to talk to. I mean, I really, really enjoyed it. Everyone, go and give her a follow. I'll leave all the links down below. Like I say, you'll be inspired to get off the couch and stop eating all those Twinkies just by taking one look at her on Instagram. So again, you guys, go and give her a follow. I highly, highly recommend it, and we wish you nothing but the best of luck in all of your future endeavors. And when you compete next, I honestly, taking a look at you and your photos when you're stage ready, you are going to get your pro card eventually. Just yeah, and you're 22 years old. I mean, you have all the time in the world to get it
Um,
as well. But again, you guys, go and give her a follow. I highly, highly recommend it. And this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.